Hi guys, welcome to another video on career solutions by Aashna Jain. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks on how to answer the most frequently asked questions in law firm interviews. So with that said and without further ado, let's get started with today's video. And before that, please subscribe to this channel and leave your constructive comments after this video and it will mean the world to me. Thank you so much. And with that said, let's get started. First question that a recruiter will ever ask you is to introduce yourself or to tell them something outside of your resume. Now please understand both of these two things are almost the same. They want you to not describe your resume, right? And this is the biggest pointer. Whenever in an interview a recruiter asks the students that please introduce yourself, most of the students end up making the mistake of summarizing their entire resume in front of them, and that is not the point. That is not how to correctly answer the question. The idea of the recruiter in asking you this question is that they want to see they want to understand more about your personality. They want to see you as a person, as a human, and not as some robotic person who's memorized their entire resume, right? So imagine it like a conversation you are having with a stranger for the first time, and they're asking something about you, and you end up telling them, oh, I interned there, I've written that paper, I've taken part in that debate competition, I've taken part in that moot court competition, etc. No, right? It will sound so weird. So similar is the case in the interview. Treat it like a conversation and not like an examination. And when the recruiter asks you the question about your introduction, try and talk about your city in which you were born and brought up in, or your hobbies, and something about your family, what sort of people are there, what all do they do, etc. And then you can also specifically and very minutely touch upon your inclinations towards the law and which areas of law you are most inclined towards, right? So I hope you get that point. And it's also to make yourself a bit apart from all the other candidates that are getting interviewed. So even if you end up summarizing your resume, that's not technically wrong, but that doesn't put you apart, or that doesn't give you sort of an edge in terms of the other candidates that are getting interviewed, right? So I hope that's clear. Moving on to the next sub question in this is, most of the recruiters would want you to speak up on your hobbies, right? Now, I don't know why this happens, but many students end up saying something like that my hobby is reading, right? Now, again, this is not a wrong hobby, and this is a wonderful hobby to have. Even if you're just saying it for the kick of it, this is actually the right answer. However, the point is that you can't stop at that, right? Because again, it becomes very boring in the point of interviews to not bore your interviewer, right? So you might as well populate that answer with something else. Might as well tell what kind of books you like to read, what kinds of books you've already read, what sort of genre you like to read, etc. All of that, so that it makes the answer a bit more interesting. Now, a lot of people end up saying, I like playing sports. Might as well populate what kind of sports do you like playing. Cricket, do you like playing football, do you like playing basketball, etc. Any of those sports, and you can delve further into that. Some of them tell me that, I like cooking. Then you can tell them what sort of cuisines you like the best, etc. And how did you get into cooking, all of that, right? So might as well populate your answers and deep dive into the answer without leaving your hobby at the surface level. Also, the second part of this is, most of the students ask me that, Aashna, what if we don't have any hobbies, then what do we say in this, right? Now, of course, you can always say something like that, I'm sorry, I don't really have a particular hobby. I like doing different things at different points in my law school or generally in my life, and at this point I like doing ABC, right? And then you can close the answer at that. Also, on the other hand, some students ask me that, Aashna, what if we tell a hobby that they don't like? See, honestly, you can't lie about your hobbies, because there will mostly be a follow-up question on your hobbies also, right? Now, for example, if today I tell someone that, I like playing golf, and in my opinion, that's a very fancy hobby to have, but I don't know anything about golf, right? So, and what if someone asks me a follow-up question on that? I will just not be able to answer anything around it, right? So might as well tell your hobby. Don't fear the recruiter is going to reject you just because you have a very particular hobby, right? So for example, if your hobby is traveling, you don't have to shy away from saying that your hobby is traveling just because you feel that the recruiter might feel that you will take too many leaves just to travel out, right? That's not a logical way of thinking. So please stick to your original hobbies as and when you think it's appropriate, right? So that's not as and when you think it's appropriate, like it is always appropriate, just as and when you think and deem fit that this is this is how you should put it out in front of the recruiter. Now that's the second. Third question that usually students want me to address is that recruiters ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years, where do you see yourself in 10 years, etc. All of that. in this question, you have to essentially understand that the recruiter wants you to tell them that yes, I understand what your organizational hierarchy is. Now, for example, if I'm interviewing for a law firm and I tell them that, you know, in 5 years I'll become your partner at the law firm, definitely that's wrong, and my understanding of the organizational hierarchy is clearly misunderstood, right, and is wrong. Now I need to be able to tell them that yes, I understand, and in 5 years, if I work hard, if I'm diligent enough, I might be considered for the role of a senior associate. Over that, tell them some tangible responsibilities that come along with being a senior associate, and close the answer at that. So you don't have to say vague points like, you know, like my skill set will develop, or like the people in the industry will start knowing me, etc. All of that is very tangential, and that's very secondary to your ultimate objective, or say the ultimate timeline, which is the short term goal, that what do you think you will be able to achieve in those 5 years, and what sort of particular skill set you will be able to achieve, right? Now in that sense, you don't have to, what they don't want to hear is anything around, say, you know, you tell them which doesn't align with their long-term goals. Now for example, if you tell them that in 5 years I'll go for higher studies, now again, they might not like it, because for that you might have to leave the organization, right? Or they don't want to listen to any jokes like, you know, I'll be on the other side of the table, etc., and you know, I'll be hiring people. Nothing of that sort. They just want to hear your understanding and awareness about, you know, where do you see yourself in those next 5 years or 10 years, how much ever they've asked. I hope that's clear. And the last question that I want to address is that when the recruiter asks you in the end that, do you have any questions for us, again, in that I've seen a lot of students always asking one same question, that what do you think will be my job responsibilities, and what is the day in the life of an associate like, etc. These are all template answers available online, and this doesn't make any sense, because if you're applying for a job, you ideally know what the job profile is and what the day of an associate in that law firm looks like, right? So which is why you need to understand that you should ask them a question that sort of humanizes them as an interviewer. You can ask them anything about them, you can ask them anything about their company, anything about the company policy, anything about you're generally curious on what they've worked on recently, etc., right? But nothing superfluous on the level of just asking for general questions around, you know, your work profile, because you already ideally know, and which is why you've applied in that particular position, right? And lastly, of course, I think this is not the last question, this is the last question, that a lot of students also want to know that if the firms ask you that, you know, say, why do you want to work with us? Now here, what you should never ever say is, never talk about any awards that they've gotten, never talk about any superfluous things which you feel, you know, get attached to the firm's brand, etc., because of the fact that these things are very transitionary. Today they might have gotten an award, tomorrow someone else might get it, right? So you can't just start leaving the organizations and joining the organizations just because they've gotten an award, right? So which is why what you need to do is you need to pick out some points that are very particular to that organization. Now in that, you can't say general and vague points like, you know, you have great clientele, you have great work environment, you have great work culture, etc. That all might be true, but then you need to have a justification that if you're telling them that you have great clientele, you need to know what sort of clientele they actually handle. If you're telling them that you have a great work environment, you need to know the points in support of that, right? And then you can definitely say out these points. Apart from that, always try and have one particular reason for that organization that you can't go and replicate anywhere else, right? So I think with that, we've reached the end of today's video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. It will mean the world. Please share it with your friends. And if you want a second part of this video, please let me know in the comments. If you have any other suggestions for any videos, please let me know in the comments for the same as well. And I'll see you on next Sunday. Thank you so much.